Hello and welcome to the Time Is Now podcast. My name is Jody Albert Moss, and today we have a returning guest, Reverend Arlene. She was on, I think, about a year ago, and we're having her back on again. A lot has changed in her life, and I'm going to turn it over to her. She'll start and give you a little intro first.
Thank you for having me here again, Jody. I truly appreciate it. Um, yeah, because I think a year ago I was under a different name. I was under Intuitive Works, and as we know, as humans, we evolve and grow, and we step into new roles, and that's kind of what happened. I was looking at my certificate today. So October of last year, of 2023, I became a metaphysical minister. So Reverend. And what's interesting is I was thinking about this where must have been even before my youngest was born or even thought of. So he's 18 now. I've always felt this calling to become like a reverend or a minister of sorts. And I didn't know why or what that looked like. But then I kept kind of just like pushing it away. And just like fear, of course, you're like, oh, what am I going to do with this? And I just kind of forgot about it. But then I guess 2022, it started hitting me really intensely. And all I kept hearing was, I just wanted to be closer to God. I wanted to be closer to God. I wanted to be a tool for God, and just to be in service. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. And I just thought, okay, you know what? I have to stop ignoring it. And because in that time, too, as I started to delve deeper into my practices and trusting and listening to the guidance of my higher self team and God. And I was just like, okay, screw it. We're going to like put the fear aside and just go with it. Right. Because, I realized even with a lot of things, right? Like, for example, with Reiki, for example, let's say, people take Reiki and maybe when they first decided to take it, they had these ideas and expectations of what they thought that was going to look like. And I find that sometimes for some people, and often it is, taking these type of courses is really just an activation tool, right? It's something to activate you. And, and as you start, and once that happens, the next thing you know, something changes in you. And that's what I found happened once I've completed my course. And then I got my certification and I had an idea of what I thought I was going to be doing with it, but at the same time, I wasn't sure. I just knew I wanted to be in service and to just create a closer bond with God. And yeah, and then all of a sudden, and then that just totally changed. And I realized, okay, a lot of it too, again, it's more of just, it became this activation in me to develop and grow and change my practice in a way and how I serve the community and just with my services and expanding with that. And it just keeps growing and changing and evolving. And that's kind of what happened now, where even though I'm still doing something similar to when I was Intuitive Works, but I find maybe my intention, I guess, and just how I've been guided is very different for me. And it really is just about being of service and how to be that catalyst. I'm just the catalyst. I'm just the vessel, right? And I do whatever I can to try to remove, I guess, not remove the human, but how the human ego can come into play and it tries to control things. And I really work to be conscious of that and to really remove that aspect so that I am just here. And then when I do things, it's very much, I try to be very like verbatim of how I get the information so that I don't allow the human to kind of try to take over and interpret it in a way and just let it just be and show up. Does that
It's
make
so
sense?
true. It's so true what you said, like with Reiki and all these things that we do. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't even have to be like conventional spiritualism. People attain these certain levels of learning. We don't go back and keep learning the same thing again. We hit those levels and we move on. We flow. A lot of people get trapped and stay there. And like you said, I don't believe that's the process. We get more knowledge, we get more experience, and working in the energy, we flow and evolve. And yes, we will flow and evolve and change again. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Everything's fluid, right? And it's just a matter of being open. And again, to kind of step back where, and even too with the ego, right? People are always like, oh, I want to get rid of my ego. I'm like, no, you need your ego. But it's about building a new relationship with your ego, is how I see it personally. It's about building a new relationship so that you're working together and not butting heads, because the ego has a purpose. You still need it, but it's very much about not really allowing the fear that sometimes the ego can bring in to remove you from the receiving, right? Because if you're not willing to receive, then you're blocking, right? And often too in like spiritual community, I don't know, I know I have to sometimes use like the lingo or the buzzwords to help the information get through, but to me it just, I don't know, it's just all energy. Right? It's
It
all
is,
energy.
absolutely. And we have
Yeah.
to be very cautious that we're not too hard on ourselves and too
Yes.
critical on ourselves. We
Mm-hmm.
came from a place and we will return to a place where there's no ego and everything's high vibration. We came here to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more than eliminating it,
Yeah.
the skill is learning how to deal with it and keep it in balance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about, I really think people would benefit from learning to love their ego, right? Or learning to love the shadow parts of themselves, because you can't be one without the other, right? And it's not a battle, it's not a competition with those sides of us. It's really about embracing both, because we need both. One can't survive without the other. And it's about more about like a polarity, right? I always say it's the same coin, but two different heads of the same coin. So you can't really take one without the other. They need to be embraced and nurtured and loved, and always give that sense of appreciation and grace and thanks and gratitude for that aspect of us,
It's
right?
kind of like saying, I don't like where I'm going, and it's my legs that are taking me there, so I'll get rid of my legs. Doesn't solve anything. You're still in the same place, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, that's true. And it is a constant battle, eh?
Yeah, of course it is, right? Because again, it's the human part of us that, as much as we can evolve and grow and expand, there's probably always going to be this piece of us that really truly can't fully grasp it all, right? So that's why we work on the practice of trust and listening and having faith, right? So that, because our higher selves and God, it sees everything beyond what we, from a human perspective, can truly grasp, right? There's always going to be aspects, because again, the human ego will always kind of step in to and limit us, right? To a
That
degree.
that's a good point too about the higher self and God.
Yeah.
Um, I know even for me, because we're in this physical, whatever it is,
Yes.
we can't be sure the decisions we're making are even true. It's our higher self and God that knows the best. Everything that we conclude, we research, we're going to make a statement.
Mhm.
It's affected by our this realm or reality that we're in. So how true is it?
Perception. Like a better.
Perception.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So something else that's I know you did this before, but I think it's I see you posting more about it.
Mhm.
It's these come-togethers that you have, workshops. I'm not really quite sure what they are. Would you like to talk
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, where I live here in Brantford, it's really great. So, like um, I guess the property people who own the townhouses and the apartments that I live in, they have this beautiful little community room where people who live here can use the space, for like birthday parties or whatever they want to do. But you can also host like workshops and stuff. So I spoke to them about wanting to do something for the community, to do with self care and wellness, and making it something that is practical, right? Because, as much as we wish we could be like those people who can sit in meditation for 9 hours and, live on a mountaintop, that's not reality, right? We're here, like we said, we're here in this human form, this human experience. So, how can we bring these simple little things into our everyday practice so they become part of our routine, they become part of who we are, right? To best support ourselves. So, this one that I do right now through that community center is called All Things Mindfulness. So I just bring in, again, whatever is guided to me from God and my higher self team. I don't always have a direct plan of what I'm doing, right? I have an idea, but I just kind of let it flow. And we do different things. So we focus on the breath, especially because I feel the breath is important. I know there's so many different practices of breath. I just do the one that resonates with me and that I feel is the most, I guess, simplest to do, and that you can do it every day while you're in the car, while you're washing the dishes, when you're out for a walk, whatever, you're at work, you could just do it for like 5 minutes at your desk, right? Whatever it is, because the breath is life, right? We take a breath when we come into this world and we take that last breath when we leave, right? So breath is so important. And there's so many health benefits to our breath because in that breath, we bring all that oxygen to the brain and it helps to flow the blood, all these things, right? It's so important, but we take it for granted, right? Because we always breathe. Many people would breathe very shallowly from the chest and not from the gut, not from the diaphragm. So I try to focus on that and making it something simple that you can build on and increase it. So we focus on breath. Sometimes we'll do some gentle movements using the breath. Sometimes I'll bring in like some kind of qigong type of techniques. I also like focusing on sound. So I'll either bring in like I bring my drum in, my singing bowl, my tinshas. And we also do sound, like vocal toning as well. I'll bring that in. Um, just so many different things. And we usually end off in like a meditation just to kind of help settle everything down. And I'll use different, meditations to kind of help, not really guided meditation, but it's more about helping us to reconnect to our body and awaken our own inner healer, right? Because I truly believe no one can heal you, right? It's, you need to want to put in the work and be ready to be honest. Like we have to be brutally honest with ourselves. And that's the hard part, right? Because who judges us the most? We judge ourselves the most critical, right? And then because of that, then we think, even when we do these practices of being honest, and let's say we're upset with something, so we write this letter or we write in our journal, but then we even gaslight ourselves in our own journals, right? Because we don't want to seem like we're this bad person. It's not that. It's just you need to let it go, right? So it's like you need to write these things to understand that you are at this level right now. So like I'm angry because of this, or I'm just angry, right? Sometimes it's not important to focus on the why, just acknowledge you're angry and then work through that. But we need to understand these things from that human perspective so that we can work through it and release and like let go of that energy that's stuck in us. And that's why we get all that body pain and all these things, right? So I really try to bring these aspects into the classes to help people, again, learn to heal themselves. I can be the catalyst, of course, like I'm here to help support you and maybe help guide you, but I can only bring forward as much as you're willing to receive, right? And again, sometimes, I find with a lot of practitioners, sometimes, you know, we have to remember it's not about us. It's about the client. It's about the person in front of us. And how do we best support them without, you know, understanding our responsibility so that, you can't push somebody too far unless they're ready, right? And it's giving that time for them to process everything that's happening and then work from there. So that's what I bring through in a lot of the classes. I try to focus on those things and just, helping people to build those skills and tools so that they can use it every day and build on that. So when you do feel yourself maybe becoming anxious or tired, you've already kind of built that muscle memory from practicing it every day, because most people they'll decide to meditate when they're stressed and they've never practiced it every day. And then that's worse because now you're like forcing yourself to try to relax, right? But if you have built it every day and incorporated it in your everyday life, it makes it easier because it becomes a muscle memory and our body just jumps in and knows what to do.
And I found that from a very early age when I was
Mm-hmm.
young, and I used to go to church
Mm-hmm.
regular till I was 13 anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that people only turned to God when they were in trouble, if they were really sick or somebody died. And
Yep.
and once that was over, boom, back to their old lifestyle. And meditation, spirituality, you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It doesn't have to be 9 hours a day, but just a small amount, that commitment every day will change your life.
Exactly. Yep.
How do
Yeah.
people find out about your little get-togethers? Because I think it's great. Even, if people just came and knew they weren't alone and that what they were thinking, others are thinking as well. How do they get a hold of you?
So a lot of the stuff is on my website. So for the mindfulness class, it needs to be registered because it's a small space, so people would have to register ahead of time to show up. And I just do it by donation. So because like I said, I just want to be able to offer something. I do other classes too, where I have it's called Body, Mind, and Spirits, and that one I host twice a year, and it's about 3 hours. And then I, bring in a lot of those aspects I could bring into the all things mindfulness, but it's just more in depth. And then we also have like a little break time where I have tea and little snacks and treats that you can sit down and eat and, kind of interact a little more with the other participants. And I always provide a little gift that I will make myself to help people and support their journey. So, different products like I'll make bath bombs, let's say, that have properties to help support your body, or salves, or teas, or tinctures, different little things. And I'll provide those things to just to help, so people can take that home and then build their practice and take that time for themselves to support their self healing.
Is there a website address or some way they can message
Yeah.
you?
I'm never good at remembering it off the top of my head.
I know you're on Instagram.
Yeah, and I'm on Instagram too. So you can always on Instagram, I have everything on my bio there. So it has my website, it has my YouTube channel, and it has right now how to register for the All Things Mindfulness
And
class.
what's your Instagram name?
It's just Rev Arlene C. So it's Rev should be period Arlene period C.
Okay.
Yes, that's and then it's basically the same for the website. The website is the HTTPS, the colon thing with a slash, and then it's Rev dash Arlene dash C dot,
Okay.
I want to say square site slash something like that.
Okay.
It's a square. After I can send you all the information.
Yeah, send that to me because when
Yeah,
I put this up, I'll put it on to
yeah,
this will go on, like I've mentioned before, this goes to YouTube, it goes to my Spotify, and I put it across my social platforms. So
yes.
I will put your links and your contact information there so people can reach out to you.
Yeah, I try to make it as simple as possible. So everything from like my YouTube to my website to my Instagram is just Rev Arlene C. So it makes it
That is the best. So many
yeah.
people have a different name for every platform, and you can't follow them, eh?
Yeah, yeah. No, I try to keep it as simple as possible. It's like
Good.
that's been my I guess my mantra a lot this year, and especially going into 2025. It's like just keep it simple and detach as much as you can, and just be in the moment and be inspired, and just allow the information to flow and come in. It's just yeah, we try to
Yeah.
make things so complicated. And it's like it doesn't need to be that complicated.
Yeah, and by saying that,
Hmm.
I know there's people out there because I do this myself. I hear people, and while I'm watching them, yes, I want to go. What about the shy ones? What about the ones that really would benefit from joining you, but
Hmm.
they're shy or
Yeah.
scared, one or the other? How do they address that?
Honestly, just email me, message me, like, just I'm open to talking. Like it's like the way I see it is I don't want people like I would never sit there and ever try to give the impression that I have all my shit together, because I can be a hot mess too. I get it, right? Like I'm still here in this human form. I'm a mom who's raising two boys on the autism spectrum with other stuff. I have my mom and these things, so it's not like I have it all together. But at the same time, I do receive the information, so that's what I share, right? And that's usually where everything comes from. I come from that space of this is the information I've received, and this is how I've been shown how to deliver it. But I'm just me. I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
not
and
the I don't
I
yeah,
can speak to that because I've known you for several years now.
yeah,
And I know I've told you this before, but you are authentic and you're real, you're
you
human and very easy
right.
to relate. Very easy to, like, I can relate to you, I can understand you, and you understand me. And I
Yes.
want the people to know that.
Well, thank you. Oh my gosh, you're gonna
Yeah.
make me cry. I'm not good at
No,
taking
it's
compliments.
true. And as we move ahead in these energies and all these, you're right. Speaking to what you said earlier, we do need titles so people can kind of get a grasp on what we do.
Yeah,
But in this area of whatever you want to call it, people need to know you're real. You're
yeah,
not just in it for whatever. Everybody, needs to make a living, but you need that personal connection.
yes. Oh, of course. It's like anything. It's just, and I'm a true believer that there is enough for everyone, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And I just
absolutely.
think, and I understand, like I said, energy is everything. So if I don't feel that our energies are aligned, then I I'm not gonna, just take your money. You know what I mean? Like, no,
Yeah.
that's not if that doesn't sit with me. And I would rather, maybe suggest people who I think maybe would be a more of alignment for you, right?
Right.
Because we can't force that. And it's like you have to feel comfortable with me and I need to feel comfortable with you, right? And I feel like that is so important. And people just think, oh, well, I want to pay for the service, so like just let me have the service. Like, no, then I'm not honoring you, and I'm definitely not honoring me, and I'm not honoring God by just taking you in. I don't think that benefits anyone,
No, I don't think
right?
so either.
And then you won't get the best version of you if you come to me and I don't feel that there's an alignment, but you just think because you're willing to pay me, I should just, be there. And I don't think that's right for anybody. That's not being genuine. And I think that's so important. And even when it comes to money things, like, we've talked about this before. I always struggle with that. I was raised because mysticism has been a very big part of my upbringing, seeing these different mystics and oracles and healers and stuff like that. It's been huge in my life. And the way they used to do it is, you'd pay by donation, you pay what you can, or, like the only time you really had to pay a specific price was if they made teas for you or gave you special candles or whatever, right? Like, again, I was brought up, like, even though I'm Portuguese, but we have very much of like that kind of gypsy type of, belief system too. I don't know. That's just how it was for us, for me growing up. And they did it that way. And there's a part of me that still very much honors that, right? And I understand that, yes, we need money to survive in this reality that we're in. But I also believe that there is an exchange of energy too that then manifests. And I don't like even using the word manifest, but I'm just going to use it because it'll help make sense. That helps us manifest so that we get the things we need, right? We've had this conversation so many times too. In the end, we always get what we need. Even though we stress and we worry, but in the end, that bill always got paid. We always had food in our, to eat. We've always had a roof over our heads. And I believe that there is that exchange where, even let's say, you meet someone who desperately needs some support and they can't afford at this moment to pay the full price. That's fine. You've worked something else out. There's always room for some type of bartering, right? But again, you need to trust that and realize, and have that discernment to know, like, that, somebody's not just trying to take advantage of you, right? And you don't want to ever come off as if you're trying to take advantage of somebody else either, right? So I just think, those things are so important. And, I feel for myself, at least, I can't speak for anyone else, but I know for myself, it's about being of service. But I also understand it's about honoring the energies and honoring God and, honoring my higher self team, honoring the fact that I need to be here in this human form doing these things. So I'm always trying to look for that balance as well. So it's, for me, it's not just about money, because I feel that in other ways I will be paid, let's say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally sense. I learned a lot by watching your Instagram. I didn't know you
You,
made a lot of like these things that you make. You did something with
the
somebody
roses.
gifted you roses and a lot. You do other things as well.
Yeah, it's, again, it was the way I was kind of raised. Like, I was raised, like I said, my grandmother always had, little home remedy things that we could just do, right? Like, so that's what I did. And and I bring a lot of that into my home and for people, right? And because I'm still constantly always getting, it's funny because my grandmother, even though she passed away so many years ago, she still like will give me little insights, like, especially for my mom, because my mom's health isn't the best. So, also my grandmother will like chime in and then I'll have to call my mom and be like, oh, grandma said this today. Is this true? She's like, yes. I'm like, she told you to do this. Right. So, it helps. But yeah. And so I have a bunch of herbs and stuff. And yeah, I've been making different things just to see how it helps. I have different tinctures that I've made that you can ingest. I've made different teas. A big seller that people seem to keep coming back for is my magnesium spray that I made. And I have two different ones. I have one that's just kind of pure magnesium spray with some aloe vera juice. And the other one has the aloe vera juice, the magnesium, but then I add some herbs into it as well to kind of just kick it up a notch. I don't know, I make things with essential oils and just other oils. I make salves. I just bought some tallow, so I'm going to be making some tallow products as well. And it's just all different things to just, again, just to help support people in, helping them feel better in the body too, right? Because as much as we're working with our soul and our spirit, we need to remember that our body also needs our support, right? It's a big system. We can't do one without the other, right? Like I said, that's why I call my gatherings mind, body, spirit, because we need to work those three together. And I feel sometimes you need to work with the mind first, connected to the body, and then it gives the space for the spirit to show up, right?
So
So,
true. I just recently had a little wake up call with my health and I got it under control real quick.
mhm,
But I realized for me, sugar, right? And as it came out of my body, like real quick, within the first week, I could feel my mind becoming clearer. And since I stopped eating the sugars and the carbs, and
mhm,
really that's all I did,
yep,
my energy levels have changed and my perception and information coming to me has
mhm,
changed just because I'm taking better care of my physical body. Because I said, well, I'm spiritual. I don't need this. I can go out in the cold. I don't, you know.
mhm.
No, you need, like you just said, you need the balance between body, mind, and spirit. Um, Arlene, Reverend Arlene, the Reverend part of your
It's so
life,
weird for me still.
you're right,
Trust
your
me.
life now. So I'm just going to throw a few things out there and you can talk about whatever you want. Do you do weddings or
Uh,
baptisms or blessings or any of that kind
um,
of?
yeah, so technically, because I haven't done the other part where I'm registered with Ontario, right,
Right.
with the Ontario government kind of thing. So I can't perform weddings, but I can do renewal ceremonies. So like marriage renewals, I can do. It would be like a baptism, but they call it a baby naming or baby blessing.
Yep.
um, Actually, something I am looking into offering in 2025. I have all these new ideas that are coming through of things I want to offer. So 2025 is going to be an interesting year, and a big change in my services, and offerings. Because just the other day I did a house blessing, and a blessing of a person of the person who lived there, and it's interesting because again, being raised the way I was raised, I was taught how to like clear a house, right? And with old, like with Portuguese prayers, and and very much it is very much geared towards like almost like a Catholic, like a Catholic exorcism in a way when you think about it, because a lot of the prayers I use are prayers that are used in that type of, I guess, mindset. Um, Even though I'm not seeing it as an exorcism, but because now I see it as even when you use different like incenses, right? People used to say, okay, it's smudging, you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm like, no, now from what I understand and from talking to the plants, talking to the herbs, talking to the energy, it's not that. It's you are the vessel that clears the space. So you are if your vibration is higher and your frequency is higher, then that will dissipate the energy in your space. So, but sometimes certain herbs can help you move into that space, right? And there are herbs that are very spiritual, right? So like, the three kings, the resins of the three kings, you have your myrrh, your copal, your sandalwood, your frankincense, right? Um, and then again, like the way I was taught too, we add rosemary and rue, garlic, salt, and cayenne pepper, just a little bit of cayenne pepper, because that will like choke somebody out in the house with the cayenne pepper. She put a very little bit amount of cayenne pepper, but that gives it like a really big, kick in the butt. So I use these different herbs and I put them on the charcoal, and then I go through the house and I say my Portuguese prayers and my English mantras, right? I mix the two. And again, I go with my crucifix, and I made my own blessed salt and water, using Catholic rituals to do that, right? But I bring it all together, and it was just really amazing, just the transformation in the home and the transformation she felt from me, and then doing my own like blessings on her as well. So that's something I'm looking forward to maybe bringing in. I want to start bringing that in to the new year as well for, and I think even just with the personal blessing, it is something I can do, I think, on online as well, because I do distant energy sessions online. Um, and what I do is, I think we talked about this before too, where, because again, I learned Reiki back in 1999, right? So it's like the joke is like, the OG, the original Reiki, right? So I was taught where, like the symbols, you didn't share the symbols online, right? They
Yep,
were sacred.
absolutely.
You didn't share them. Even in your manuals, like your first and second manual, you didn't even get the symbols written in the book because they were that sacred. You had to memorize them. Only in the master uh, manual did you get the symbols, so that this way you can perform them and give the attunements to your students, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how I was taught. So to me, I do whatever I can to not share the symbols when I post things about Reiki, because to me they're still sacred. Um, Now I forgot where I was going with
Well,
that.
I
So
got another
sorry.
question.
Yes, the online.
I
Sorry.
agree with the sacredness and the respect.
Yeah.
And yeah, when that first came out and they were printing symbols and that was it. I walked away. I went and did my own thing, That's just me personally. But I
Yeah.
want to ask you, you say you go in the house, you do prayers and your
Hmm.
old Portuguese prayers. Do you
Hmm.
notice the difference between saying them in Portuguese and saying them in English?
I do, yes. Only because I think, again, it's the intention behind it, right? It's the energy behind it. And it was the way I was taught, right? From by
Yeah.
my mom and my grandmother. So to me, it holds a lot of energy, right? And I think that's anything. Like I was saying, like the fact that I do these online energy sessions where I'm able to um, so what I do is, instead of the old way in Reiki where you just did the distance energy and the person didn't have to be around or anything, and that still works. Like don't get me wrong, that's still very powerful. I've done it. People didn't know I did anything until I later talked to them. They're like, I don't know what happened this morning. I just felt so different. Well, yeah, because energy was sent, right? But what I want to do is, again, it's very important to me that that the person takes that time to focus on themselves. So the way I do it is I set up my table, and I set up my laptop so the person can see the table, and I have the ability of transferring their energy onto that table. So as if they are in the room with me, and then I work on them that way while they're in the space with me. So it's happening at that exact time, but it's just happening virtually, and it's been amazing. I've had such like positive feedback. People are loving it. And some people even like it more than in person, because then they're home. They don't have to worry about, oh, now I got to get up and drive and leave. Where we can just finish the session, and then they can just stay laying, in whatever spot they are, and they have the opportunity to just, really sit longer with what just happened during the session. So it's been amazing. And I feel that there's probably a good chance that I could do that with the blessings as well. Just do it, and I could do it virtually, just because that's how strong energy is. And I don't believe that there's like any way of blocking that, only if the person believes that it doesn't work, right? Or or the practitioner, right? If they believe, oh, it can't happen. But no, energy is strong. And again, it's not an ego thing. It's I've seen it happen. I've seen the changes, and especially I love doing it on people who have never had Reiki done before and don't understand it, and then they feel how powerful it is. They're like, I don't understand how through a screen I can feel you working on my legs, and I love it. I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Like I know it has nothing to do with me. It's all God, and it's just energy, but I love
Oh,
it.
it does have something to do with you because if you're clear and you are clear, you
Yeah.
can move more energy. It's like a river. If it's full of stones, the water doesn't flow. But if we do our own self work, and you and I've talked about this, and
Yes.
remove those stones from our river, the
Yep.
energy flows, you know? And often it's better that the person that is receiving doesn't have a clue about it because there's so much information out in the world. And we talked about this Friday night. There's so much information in the world that as soon as someone says, okay, can you do this for me? They got preconceived ideas. As soon as you mention a name, oh,
Yeah.
well, so and so had it happen and this is what they have. So they're basing their experience on someone else's. So
Yeah.
sometimes when they don't know,
Yeah.
they're the best vessel to receive.
Yep. It's just like a, like it's like simple things like a movie, right? Somebody tells you, "Oh, I love this movie. I loved it, blah
Yeah.
blah," and then you have all this hype, and then you watch it, and you're like, I didn't. I don't see what you saw, right?
Yeah,
Same
absolutely.
idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 But I just love energy. Like it's just so amazing, and I really do feel too that because of all the shifts that have been happening and just energy wise, it has amplified it so that the energy can do what it's meant to do, right? Like I feel that, Mother Earth, Gaia has gone through such huge shifts of expansion and contraction and expansion that it's opened the flood, it's opened the flow to allow it to have the impact it's meant to have. I feel like a lot of that, those walls that were up have crumbled. I don't know. Do you feel that?
Yeah, and it's like you're setting yourself up for the same questions I want to ask you.
Oh,
As we're approaching, hey, January's here almost, eh? 2025.
yep.
What do we got to look forward to?
So it depends on your perspective, right? It all depends on the person, right? So I'm thinking if you're that type of person that you think things happen to you instead of for you, you might not be thrilled. But I think I feel that it's already been building this year. And I feel that since the what was it, the super moon that we had in November, that one really pushed something, I feel. And I feel that we're in this energy of one wanting simpler, right? Like we were saying, keep it simple. People are going to want less. They want quality versus quantity. And that's going to be in their home, in their relationships, and what they put in their system, those things. I really feel that that's going to be a big shift we're going to be seeing in 2025. People are really going to want less because they want more, but they want quality, right? They realize, and they're starting to realize that human suffering is attachment, right? So I feel that's a big thing. The other big part too is, as we've said before, the more you are ready to take accountability and responsibility for your life and your role in what your life has been with compassion. It's not to be there being criticizing yourself, right? Like that's not the point. It's not to sit there and beat yourself over it. But the more you can be honest with yourself and have that raw honesty and be vulnerable, you are going to see such big shifts and changes in your life because you are ready to step into that. And I really feel that because the energy, everything is happening so simultaneously, it's just so quick right now. It's very important that we don't just think about the instant gratification. It's about, are you really ready to step into that role? Because if you're not, you're just gonna, it's not, it's just, I don't know, it's just not, it's gonna be a struggle to make it work. It's the best way I can describe it. It's like, it's also understanding, yeah, like I said, it's understanding that responsibility. It's almost like somebody who's never been good with money, and then they think, if I win the lottery, that's going to solve my problems. No, because you didn't know how to work with money to begin with. Having more is just going to cause more problems, right? So it's that understanding of, really, again, we need to really look deep and hard at ourselves. And I feel too, a lot of it is this aspect of people are recognizing the illusions. They can't deny them anymore as much as they try. I do feel, of course, there's going to be a lot more deaths. And that usually happens in this time of year because, it's part of the people's contracts. And some people are just not ready or just don't have the capacity and energy to live in this new paradigm. So they need to complete the rest of their work on the other side. I feel that's a lot of what we're expecting. But I feel that if you are truly ready to be honest with yourself, you're going to be noticing these changes. And I really do feel something big is coming that's really going to not shatter, but shake our foundation, because what's been happening can't sustain itself in these new paradigms and these new energies. That's how I.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I agree with you 100%. Things are shifting. And I always say the earth is going to go there with or without us. So we can either,
Mhm.
you know, test the rough waters and do what we need in ourselves, like you mentioned, or, we get removed. And, death isn't a punishment.
No.
And I've seen a lot of death in the last year and a lot of suffering. And you're right. And it's coming from everywhere. And everyone I talk to is going through it.
Mhm.
It's the change, I guess. That's what you could call it, eh?
Yeah, and it's because if we look at it honestly, humans, when things are going good, they don't change, right? It's just like then they just kind of, but it's like it's only when we feel like something is bad that we make the change, right? When something like shakes our foundation, that's when we decide, I'm angry now, I've had enough, or I always think of like the tower card, right? Like from tarot, you have the tower card where when it is upright, it's basically the universe has stepped in to shatter your foundation because you've been too slow, right? So an example is, let's say you hate your job and you keep saying, I hate my job, I hate my job, I gotta look for another job, but you never do anything about it. What happens is you lose your job, and now you're forced to look for a job because you didn't step in and listen to the messages and the guidance to leave. But when it's reversed, it's the contract that you signed and you said, I'm ready to make these changes, right? And then that's you working with the energies, listening to the guidance of. So it's like you've decided to get off the pot, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to make these changes, even though I know I'm probably going to piss off a lot of people because people like you to stay in the box they put you in. And even ourselves, right? We struggle to get out of that box that we've been programmed to believe we fit in. And I feel that that's another big thing that's happening in 2025 too, is we are being faced to witness and see our true selves. And are we ready again to step into that role of being that person that we know we need to be? And it means losing a lot of people, because people are not going to be happy when you don't fit their expectation of you.
And it's not easy. In the last little while, I've met so many people that know everything. Like they'll say to me or complain to me about something, and I'll say, well, have you tried this? Oh, yeah, you told me about that. Well, are you doing this? Well, no, but I know about it. And, I don't claim to know everything, but I'm 65. I've been through a lot. And this last shakeup for me, I was one of those people. I'm okay. No, I wasn't okay, but you're right. You have to say it's a life change. It's not going to be comfortable and it's going to be hard, but you have to do it. And if you don't do it, if you don't choose to do it, evolution or the energies won't stop because of you.
No.
The humans will be the ones taken out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've made videos about the information gatherers and the researchers. Information and research, unless you apply effort and the will to change to it, is just information and
Yeah.
it's useless.
Yeah. I always say there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom,
Yeah.
right? So that's the way I see it.
Wisdom, I think if I get it right, wisdom comes from using knowledge correctly, doesn't it?
Yep.
Something
Yep.
like that. You have to work with it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can have the knowledge, but if you don't know how to put it into practice and when to put it into practice, that's to me is when it's wisdom. When it's like, it's almost like, too, in this kind of lifestyle that we're in, or the, our practice, right? It's that whole thing of knowing when to say something and when not to say something, right? It's that whole thing of, just because, I might see something, but if you didn't ask me, I'm not going to sit there and tell you, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's being
absolutely.
very careful of how you share the information, right? Like, it just because you see it, it doesn't mean you have the right to share it. And it's like understanding other people, or just knowing, when to keep your mouth shut and when to say something. And because you have to also read the room, read the audience, I guess you can say, right? It's understanding, like Jesus said all the time, some people are going to understand me and others are not. And it doesn't matter how plain English I say something. It's, you know what I mean? He didn't say plain English because he was Jewish, but, but still, you know what I mean? Like he just said, some people are going to understand me and others are not. And I feel that that's a big thing. It's those who are ready to hear will understand you. And those who don't, it doesn't matter what you say, they're just not going to get it. Or, you're always going to be the villain in somebody's story.
What you just said, I recently read in one of my books. I do a lot. I like to read and research, and Buddha had the same dilemma when he became enlightened and had all this ways of doing his techniques and whatever, and he decided he wasn't going to share it with anyone until another wise person came along, and I'll get the words wrong, but you'll understand where he's going, and said, "Well, you can't be like that, Buddha. You got to share." And Buddha said, "Well, they're not ready. They won't hear me. Why am I wasting my time?" And the other wise energy said, "There might be one or two that can comprehend what you're going to tell them, and you'll change their lives." And that's the way it is, right? Not everybody's ready.
No.
Some people will get the wake up call. And even my doctor told me it's a total life change.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do it, then you're going to be on these pills all your life. I decided that for me to give up some junk food and live a little different life, I'll make that change. And it worked. But everybody's going to be put in that possession, whether it's their diet, their career, their relationships. Everybody's going to hit that wall because that's part of the energy's changing, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to decide. There is no gray area. You'll either stay where you are or you'll move forward.
Exactly. And also understanding that it's going to look different and be different for everyone. And
Oh,
we can't
yeah.
sit there and judge and say, well, you're doing it wrong or you're doing it right, because we're all here to have our own individual experience. And
Yeah.
we can't force somebody into that experience. That's not our job, right?
No.
We live by example, and that energy shoots out through. But at the same time, it's always understanding that people are here to have their own experience, and we have no right to sit there and tell them they're doing it wrong, or they're too slow, or they're not getting it. That's not, I don't feel, personally, that's what I feel. I don't feel that that's our job. We can't sit there and tell somebody you're doing it right, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it right, you're not spiritual enough or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's why too I don't like any of those labels. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, I feel that is huge. We're all here having our own experience. We need to do it at our own pace, right? And like I said, we are going to have those moments where the universe and God jumps in, steps in, and shakes it up. But that's them right there. Like, that's that energy. They're allowed to do those things. But us as humans, I can't sit there and say, no, Jody, you need to do this instead. I know your doctor said this and you're saying this and this is working for you, but no, I see this for you. I can't sit there and say that to you,
Yeah.
right? Because
And
you,
that's where the challenge will come from everywhere to
yep,
everyone.
yep,
In your own life and in your own beliefs, you'll know,
yep,
and you'll have to decide what you want to do.
yep.
And you picked it before, we all picked it before we came here.
Goodness. Yep,
That's the big challenge, right? Like, did
yep,
I really pick this?
yep. I always joke around with my boys because I always say to them, I'm like, you picked me. Next time, read the fine print.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always say that to them. I'm like, you guys picked me. Next time, read the fine print. And then my youngest, because he's so sarcastic like me, goes, you were probably just one of the lesser evils, Mom. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, you were the one that they defaulted to.
Yeah.
Anyways, Reverend Arlene, we're almost over into an hour almost.
Oh,
So
really? Oh my gosh.
yeah, you got
Wow.
any last words that you want? We'll get you on again. You got anything you want to say to the people?
The biggest thing, I think, maybe I even said this last time in a year, like a year ago, it's compassion. Please be compassionate with yourself, be compassionate with others. You know, it's understanding compassion, but also understanding that, you can't always have sympathy or empathy for people sometimes, because the understanding that they need, again, like we are just saying, they need to do their own thing. They need to learn for themselves. But compassion is huge, and working hard to not take things personally, because not everything is about you, right? And, and just holding space, hold that space for people, even if you can't understand what they're going through or why they're behaving the way they are. Just hold that space, you know, be love, because we are love, but remember that and understand that it's not your job to change them. It's not your job to convince them of anything. You just be you, and protect that, of course, protect your heart, but also keep it open and know that sometimes all somebody needs is just that little bit of, I'm here and I'm not here to judge you. I don't know. That's just kind of the only message I have is be love.
Okay. Thank you, Reverend Arlene. Thank you to the listeners. You've been listening to the Time Is Now podcast. This podcast will go out on my YouTube channel, Spotify, and across my social media. Reverend Arlene's links will be in there and her information. I encourage you to contact her and follow her on Instagram and like her posts. Okay? So thank you everyone for joining us, and we look forward to sharing again. Bye.